Hello and welcome to the Interactive Knowledge Organiser. I know in today's session we are going to look at the additional principles of training. And just before we get started, reminder to use together with your knowledge organiser, stop and pause the video if you're not sure, rewind and watch again if you didn't understand the first time, and ask your teacher if you still don't understand after watching. So, where are we looking on the Knowledge Organiser? We are looking in this bottom right hand corner section on the first page, okay, all the way around there, and we're looking at all of these additional principles training 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. So, just a reminder, the principles of training are frequency, intensity, time and type. And the additional principles of training, what we're focusing in this video on, okay, are listed here, and there are 7 of them, okay. If you want to know about these 4, okay, please go back and watch a previous video for that, and it'll be talking about the FIT principle. So, what does a FIT principle? So now, just thinking very quickly, recapping on the left-hand side here, you might get a question like this. So Diana is a rower who has designed a training program using the FIT principle to improve her performance. Identify which one of the FIT principles have been applied in each statement. So a reminder, that's frequency, intensity, time or type. So you have to write into the box here what whether or not it's frequency, intensity, time or type. Okay, so Diana trains 5 days a week, so we're talking there how often she's training. Okay, so as she's talking about how often she's training, we are talking about our frequency. Okay. For the main part of the training, Diana is using a row machine at an RP of 13 on the Borg scale. We are then talking about the intensity, okay, that she is working. To make that harder, you could actually talk about how she improve her training, not in this question, but in future questions, but I'm not going to focus on that because that's another video. But I just want to link the idea then to now a question which you could get here, which is which one of these is an additional principle of training. Okay, so we know agility in this is a component of fitness. Okay, we know, okay, intensity and type, okay, are on the FIT. Usually they will always give you something from the FIT principle, hence why I showed you this question, okay? So that's why there's quite often an overlap and they expect students to get that wrong. So the answer then has to be, okay, apologies for my pronunciation, specificity, okay, there. So we know a component of fitness, okay, of fitness is at the top for agility, changing direction and speed. Intensity and type fit into the I and the T there from the FIT principle, so it leaves one option. So you can see how straight away you can work out an answer, process of elimination. So the additional principles of training are progressive overload, specificity, individual needs or differences, adaptation, reversibility and variation. I'm going to go through these one by one. If you've got any questions or you need to rewind, please do so if you need to go back over them. So progressive overload. In order to progress, training needs to be demanding enough to cause the body to adapt, improving performance. Fitness can only be improved by training more than you just normally do. You must work hard. So imagine it's like climbing the stairs, okay? Each session or each week or each block of training, however you decide to structure it, needs to be harder than the last, okay? So in there's an overload or an increase, okay? So your training is getting harder as it goes. Otherwise, if you just had your training like this, okay, in a straight line, you would make no improvements whatsoever. So see it as you've got some stairs that you're climbing, okay, progressive overload. What's important to remember is if you do too much, okay, too much, too soon, okay, equals injury risk, okay, or fatigue, okay. Fatigue, it means tiredness, Okay, so if you had your stairs and you constantly were going upstairs, okay, and you didn't give yourself long enough, okay, to make the improvements, or if you had like a plan like that, okay, you might find yourself getting injured. So we want to make sure we progressively overload it. And the key word is there, progressive, but it's to make sure your body can adapt, okay, in there. Specificity. So training should be specific to the individual's sport, activity or physical skill related fitness goals to be developed. So for example, if you're a runner, you need to run in your training. If you're a cyclist, you need to do some cycling in your training. That doesn't mean you can't cross-train, okay? But the majority of your training would need to be in that discipline. Okay, if you're a goalkeeper, you wouldn't do lots of shooting, you would do lots of goalkeeping practice if you were a footballer. Okay, so training must be matched to the needs of the sporting activity to improve fitness in the body's parts it uses. You should train the energy systems which you predominantly use, i.e. don't run 5,000 meters in training if you're a sprinter. Okay, so sprinters would have different training, okay, for example, to a marathon runner or a long distance runner. So it suits the needs, okay, of who's in front. And the fitness and the skill component most important to your sport, for example, agility, balance or muscular endurance. So if you're a footballer, you would do lots of agility work, you wouldn't do as much running in straight lines, okay? If you're a gymnast, you would do lots of balance work, okay? Maybe more so than some other activities or sports, okay? So if you are a sprinter, you would need things like power, okay? So you might go for, okay, power. Okay, you might go for reaction time, you might go for speed, okay, and you might go for muscular strength, okay. However, a long distance runner will go for aerobic endurance, they might go for muscular endurance, and then that is about in terms of the components of fitness that they would need. They might talk about flexibility, okay, and that could be on either list, to be honest, flexibility, but other than that, most of the other components of fitness would be sprinters. So this is a sprinters list, okay, and this could be a long distance, okay, athlete there. So you've got different components of fitness you'd focus on, okay. I wouldn't expect to see lots of reaction time things for a long distance athlete. Okay, individual needs or differences. The program should meet the individual training goals and needs. So for example, okay, a 10-year-old athlete, okay, and a 20-year-old athlete and a 50-year-old athlete, I would expect all have 3 different types of training, okay. All 3, okay, would need different requirements, okay. It might be that the 10-year-old is more flexible, okay. They might be have lower, okay, they'd have reduced aerobic capacity. They would probably be able to hear you'd been towards your peak, okay, moving to peak, okay, and this would be past peak, okay, depending on the activity or sport, okay, but you start to peak in your 20s to 30s for most activities, not all, but a 10-year-old, it'd be too young. I wouldn't expect to see doing lots of weightlifting. A 50-year-old might have problems if they started doing too much intense flexibility work. It could cause injury, okay. If you didn't match your individual needs and differences, you could cause injury. So if an individual wants to keep active and stay healthy, they'll have a very different training program to a professional athlete, which would also suggest that, for example, if I was training, okay, whilst working, okay, my training would be different to a full-time athlete, okay, someone that can train and rest in the day, okay. So if I train once a day, someone might train twice a day, but they don't have to work all day, okay. So that's another way of looking at it. Adaptation, how the body reacts to training loads by increasing its ability to cope with those loads. Adaptation occurs during the recovery period after the training session is completed. So you effectively, you train, okay, whilst you rest, Okay, that should actually be a flat line. Okay, if I can get my thing. Okay, so you train, okay, there, and during the rest, okay, you start to improve. Okay, so during the rest, you would then train again, and it's during the rest periods you start to increase, okay, because your body has time to rest and recover. It repairs little micro tears to muscles, okay, it gets the nutrients back to the places it needs to be. It repays oxygen debt, etc. in the body. So the body reacts to training loads imposed by increasing its ability to cope with those loads. Adaptation occurs during the recovery period after a training session is completed. Okay, it's not, if you do the session, you're not getting fitter in the session. Okay, that's really important. So remember, you get fitter afterwards. So if I do my when I'm training for a race, I will always make sure that I have enough rest and recovery between sessions. So I'll always train on a Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday, okay, with an easier type of running going on a Monday and a Wednesday, to make sure that, for example, I'm rest and recovered for those sessions, but I'm getting the key adaptations there, okay. Reversibility. If training stops or the intensity of training is not sufficient to cause adaptation, training effects are reversed. So imagine during lockdown, if you suddenly couldn't play football, okay, it is not sufficient. Your training will basically will reverse some of the benefits of your previous training, okay. You will lose ground. So if you're ill, injured, reversibility, okay, so the key things would be injury, okay, injury, illness, okay, so if you're ill, okay, you might find, okay, it could be your job for work or for school, okay, could mean you can't train, it could be holiday. If you go on holiday, it means you might have different type of facilities available to you. Therefore, okay, any adaptation that takes place as a result of training will be reversed when you stop training. Okay, so it's when you stop training or training as you should be. If you take a break or don't train as often, you will lose fitness. If you usually train 4 times a week, okay, and then you go down to 1 time a week, you are going to start seeing reversibility over a period of time. Just bearing in mind, don't confuse that with a rest and recovery period. Okay, rest and recovery period gives you adaptations. However, if that continued and you gave yourself too much rest, that is almost the case of when reversibility comes in. Too much rest, not because you've not given not because you've given yourself some. Okay, doesn't mean you should train it really hard all the time. Next one, variation. To stop yourself getting bored, okay, like listening to me now, okay, it's really important you vary your training, okay. Try and train in different ways. It might be you train with different people, you change the equipment, okay, change the environment to where you train, the location, the order of your training, okay, the circuit. You could do it, instead of going that clockwise round, you could say you're going to go anti-clockwise round the circuit, okay. The type of exercise you're going to do, okay, so you could swim to get your aerobic endurance up instead of running or cycling. And the nature of your training, the way you approach it, okay, and what you're trying to focus on there. So variation, okay, so don't just do the same all the time. So if you usually do A, then B, then you might do B, then A, or you could introduce C, okay, you might introduce a different form altogether. So variation, mix it up, don't get bored, okay, and helps maintain enjoyment, okay, because you've got that variation in your training, okay. You're more likely to continue with your training if you are enjoying it. Remember, and the last one, which needs to be covered, rest and recovery, okay, that is between sessions or blocks of training where you take rest, time off, okay. You could, if it's recovery, you could say it's cross-training. So you could do a light swim if you're a runner, okay, sitting on the bench, okay, as you can see in this photograph, an old photograph of Steven Gerrard. He's not playing, he is recovering or resting, okay. So generally rest, Okay, just means you are not exerting any pressure on yourself. Recovery means you're recovering from something. Okay, so it could be recovering from an injury or a hard training session. Okay, so just go back through these. Okay, so progressive overload is when you got your staircases, okay, of going up, your training. Okay, specificity, is it specific to your training? Okay, is it actually appropriate? So if you're a runner, are you doing running training? Individual needs or differences, are you doing the same as an elite athlete, or are you doing the same as what's right for you? Okay, not everyone needs the same training, but you could still achieve your goals. It's different ways to skin a cat, as what a phrase there. Adaptation is when you are rest and recovering. Okay, so if you've got to have the rest and recovery, is another one there. Okay, so whilst you're rest and recovering, adaptation occurs. Okay, so adaptation and rest and recovery linked together. Reversibility, if you stop training, all the benefits of your training are reversed. And finally, variation means try and mix and match, do things different order to reduce the chance of boredom. I hope you found this beneficial. If you've got any questions, please ask your PE teacher or rewind and watch again and have a look with your knowledge organiser. Thank you.